After owning the bike in question for a whole season, I decided to give it a long-term review. This is my first ever video review. English language is not my mother tongue, so don't be harsh. I've owned D790 for a whole season, just over 10,000 kilometers. That's about 6,200 miles. I've ridden the bike in both wet, cold, hot, and dry environments. I've been commuting, driving twisties, traveling further distances, and riding at the track. I won't go deep into specifications because it's something everyone can find out by themselves. But I will tell you how the specs handle in the real world. The engine is responsive, has surprisingly long torque curve, and is predictable. It absolutely lacks vibration. The fueling is great at high RPM. At lower speed below 3000 RPM it cuts off quite abruptly. My recommendation is to actively use different riding modes for different riding purposes. While commuting, I recommend using street mode for smoothing lower RPM throttle response. Use sport for spirited riding and track for track use. The bike has great traction control. Got to play around with it quite much at the track. It really allows you to learn the bike's power well without the risk of high siding. The ABS and quartering ABS work quite well. Have really pushed ABS into the corners without any issues. The Supermoto mode works really well. I have been able to trail brake all the way into the apex with a smile on my face. The quick shifter works well up and down, though some users have had issues with downshifting. Make sure to run your bike in well before you begin hammering the quick shifter. The typical KTM false neutral between 5th and 6th gear will surprise you occasionally. So to avoid that, I personally decided to stop using the quick shifter between 5th and 6th gear. The infotainment system is easy and responsive. It is easy to navigate and gives you lots of information. I would not recommend to upgrade the system with the power parts. I believe it's that too expensive for choosing songs and answering phone calls. The upgrade does not let you use the navigational system. The bike is light and responsive, handles tight turns like no other. High speed long corners get a little wobbly, but that changes once you make a different ergo setting. You can definitely feel bigger bumps, but you can't really expect more from a bike this light and with unadjustable suspension. The suspension is quite stiff and is set up for sporty riding. It definitely suits my style of riding. For my body weight, the setup works surprisingly well on the track. It does not dip too hard during braking. The brakes are good for the street and okay for the track. They work well for occasional track day, but definitely need an upgrade for serious track sessions. Before I begin to talk about the ergos, let me tell you my size. I'm 190 centimeters tall, that's around 6.2 and a half. I weigh 80 kilograms, 176 pounds. D790 is an extremely comfortable motorcycle for me. I could easily spend a whole day riding the bike. A great example, I rode 2.5 hours to the track, then I spent 4 hours at the track, and then I rode 2.5 hours back from the track without any discomfort. The stock seat is very comfortable, there's a lot of room to move around in it, and I had no issue spending up to 8 hours straight in the saddle. The bike can easily be set up for any sized rider. With the help of power parts, you can easily lower the seat height down approximately 40 millimeters, so 1.6 inches. You can also raise the seat height with 20 millimeters and move the handlebars into more forward position. I personally like the bars in the forward position. It takes away the high speed wobble I talked earlier about. The seat is quite narrow at the front which is nice for you shorter riders for when you stop. As a first-year bike, you can expect some issues. There has been reports of problems with the dash, leaking fluids, and side stands sensors. I personally had issues with leaking oil and cooling liquid, but it all got fixed with the warranty without any issue. We have a great KTM dealership support in Finland, so things get fixed fast. Maintenance of the motorcycle is not expensive, so I would recommend taking the bike to the KTM dealership while it's under warranty. My personal pros and cons. Pros would be light handling, exquisite ergonomics, great engine, great and functional electronic package. Cons would be fueling, even though they're better after the software updates. False neutral between 5th and 6th gear, occasional technical issues like leaking coolant liquid, the water and dirt coming onto the back of your jacket from the rear wheel during the bad weather, quite normal. Features not integrated into the infotainment system, like heating grips. So basically when you add the heating grips from the power parts, you cannot use the system to turn it on. You need to have a separate button, even though the Super Duke has it in the system. And the systems are similar. Would I buy this bike again? Let me explain like this. It was either D790 or Triumph Street Triple RS. I chose this bike because I got much better deal. Without the deal, I would go for the Street Triple, even though it's more expensive. I personally love the Triple engine more. Street Triple RS also offers better suspension and braking package. But all this of course at the higher price. But in this segment, no other bikes even come close to this too. So I hope I answered your question well. Thank you guys. I hope this was informative. If you have any further questions, state them in the comments below. And please tell me if you want me to make more reviews and if you want me to add first ride reviews to the channel.